Let's do a test for me. Can people hear me? Jeff Burcham?
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
We're just getting YouTube set up and then we'll get started.
Okay, we're up and running.
Okay. All right, good evening, everyone. We'll begin the working session. And open up to the citizens forum. Okay, we have no requests. Next then will be reports, board committee, and then school forest committee. I was not in attendance at that one. Jeff, were you?
I think I was the only one there.
And
What
then-
did we do? I was there. I think the biggest thing is the timber sale.
Yeah.
And it's not at an amount where we have to put it out for bids, so we can move forward with that memo that went out. So, and I think I didn't get the chance to do the research, but as far as at one point, goes back quite a few years when I think Bruce Hasbargen was on the board. When they set up the school forest, that the timber sales would go back into the forest committee fund. And we're looking at a timber sale. I'm not sure what the estimated revenue was on it. It's like $5,000 or $6,000 roughly.
Right.
So once that's done, that's probably something we'll ask the board to designate that money back into the school forest fund. But that was kind of established way back when they set that up, so. And we've talked about the moonlight ski. Hopefully that's something we can do. I think it was sometime in February, so there's
Yeah.
lots of time to plan for that, but that's an outdoor event and that might be something we can consider when we get closer, but that's all I can think of right now.
Some policies. And we do have a memo on the proposed units for the timber sale, so we can share that too.
Yeah, I can send that out to the whole board.
And I think the next step then is just to ask DNR Forestry to do the cruising and get that set up, which they do at no cost as part of the school forest program.
Okay, good.
Anything else on that? Otherwise, we'll go on to the finance committee.
Anyone want to speak on the finance committee?
Crystal? Would you speak to the
I can,
finance?
yeah. I did email out the August and September monthly budget reports to the members who were not on the committee. Right now isn't very accurate because we are still in our audit and we still have several journal entries to do. But if you have any questions on that, you can let me know. And then we just discussed that we turned in the information to the county to get the CARES funding that they had allocated to us of the $50,000, and that we're still in our audit and hopefully going to finish up in the next couple weeks.
And then will they present the audit again?
Are we looking December for the audit or November?
Well, hoping for November, but it may be December depending upon, and then we will do it. They'll just do it via Zoom. So.
Okay, and we have the state report that is due towards the end of December as well.
Correct. Yeah.
That has to be
Well,
in.
Yes.
Okay. And I do have one other committee that I failed to put on the agenda, and that would be the district cabinet committee. Met on Thursday, last Thursday, whatever that date was. So I don't know, I know Boyd and Robin are on that. Anything you guys want to talk about as far as the cabinet committee meeting, or?
I guess nothing overly so. I guess at the cabinet meeting, we just discussed some different possibilities as the COVID count goes up. And correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, but I sounded like we were all in favor of trying to ensure the elementary stays all day, every day, as long as possible. And I don't know if anyone else wants to add to it, go for it.
Well, Jeff, you had sent out the memo
Yep.
regarding that, as far as the numbers, and then just varying from that and how that decision is made.
Yep, and I'll kind of segue into my presentation when you call on me.
Okay. Well, I guess we can move on then.
Okay, I'm gonna take this off so I can talk. All right, for my report, I think the first thing I have is the enrollment. So currently we're at 464, and that's down 30 students from this time last year, or at the end of the year, I mean. Elementary is up 1 at 253, and the high school is steady at 211. We currently have 13 students in elementary and 28 students in the high school who are doing distance learning full-time. We had 4 elementary and 3 high school students who have elected to discontinue distance learning and have returned to attend in person. And that was my numbers back on October 23rd. So there could be a few changes in there, but that as of October 23rd, that's where we were with enrollment. COVID safe learning plan update. I did send out some information. When we consider changing learning models, as we all know, we've seen some unsettling increases in the number of positive cases within the county. I think we're up to 44 as of this morning. Initially, that 14-day rolling average that we had referred to in each county was an important metric that schools were directed to use to determine the learning model they would use to start out the school year. And that's kind of, we looked at that data and the size of our county, and that's why we elected to start the school year in person with elementary students and hybrid for high school. And when we were looking at how we could have the kids in as much as possible, but also make sure that we have things in place to keep everyone safe and keep the spread from occurring at school. So in the elementary, even though we're in person every day, we followed the guidelines for ensuring that classroom capacity in the rooms was at 50%, and that we could ensure 6-foot social distancing of students and staff. And we went through that process, and we added some staffing and moved some classrooms in the elementary to ensure that we could meet those requirements. And with busing, we adjusted the start of the day and the end of the day in the chance that we would have to stagger some of our routes so we could have drivers go out multiple times so we could keep the numbers down to a minimum on the bus. And in the high school, I know Mary worked hard on looking at available spaces. The classrooms in the high school are a little bit smaller. The capacity is I think it's 12 for most of the high school in the high school end of it, but in the elementary, the capacity is at 16. So that had a bearing on trying to figure out if we could have all the high school kids in here every day. And we just felt we couldn't get that social 6-foot distancing with the class sizes. So that's kind of what led off. And as we continue through the school year and we look at numbers, we look at other metrics to determine the model if we need to change. So we look at geographic data, demographic data, how many school-age kids have COVID. We're looking at that. Whether or not the community spread is occurring in our school building. And as of now, we haven't had any transmission that can be traced back to the school day or when kids and staff are in the school building. We've had some exposures, but when we do contact tracing and testing, we haven't had any cases where we can say this transmission occurred at school. So that is encouraging in the fact that the masking and the distancing and what we have in place at the school is having an impact, in my opinion, at this time. And then finally, we look at staffing. That's been a huge issue. Probably one of our most challenging issues is keeping classroom teachers in the classes and trying to respond if we have people that have to go out to quarantine or become ill. Trying to keep the wheels on the bus kind of as far as staffing, and that's been a challenge. It's been frustrating at times for staff, I know. We've had to move people around from different positions to cover for other classes, so we kind of have to prioritize. And all of the teaching that we do is important, but we just, sometimes there's tough decisions that we have to make on a daily basis on where do we have to have classroom teachers. We're encouraging and working with staff, so if they're at home quarantining, they can Zoom in and actually do some remote distance learning in reverse. And that's been working very well in some classes. Other classes, it's a little more challenging. Kindergarten, first grade is a challenging age group to do that, but we're making progress. So that has an impact on what we do with our learning model. And I have regular conversations with Kay Shell at Public Health and Tierra. There's daily communications between the school and Public Health. And our Public Health has a very good handle on the pulse of where cases are happening, where testing's being done. And they work very closely with us to make sure that we're making decisions here that are timely. So at this point, even though we're at 44, I think our rolling 14-day average was up in that 42 range. I think we're still able to keep kids in the elementary coming daily and the hybrid with the high school. And I think we're keeping people safe at this time. Granted, that can change quickly depending on where some exposures are, where things are happening. So as long as families continue to work with Public Health and the school so that we make sure that we don't have any exposures happening, I think we can continue the way we're doing it. Any questions on that part of it as far as their learning plan update? Another topic I have is on the COVID-19 sick leave concern and contract language. And I'm asking the board to give leeway as far as the definition of like catastrophic health condition. And this is for staff who have used up all of their families first sick leave or their personal sick leave, and they don't have any more. This would allow under current contract language where staff can donate up to 2 days, up to 20 per event of sick leave. And what we're seeing is a lot of young staff who have had maternity or paternity leave in the last few years used up quite a bit of their personal sick leave. And also what happens is if a child gets a sniffle or a cough, we send them home and we send the siblings home and the parents, or if they're teachers, go home. And that can add up to a lot of sick leave time for some families. If there's an exposure where their child or they have to quarantine for 14 days, that really adds up. So I'm just asking for board's blessing on using that donation language to allow some relief for some of our families when it comes to sick leave.
Jeff?
Yep.
Regarding that, there's nothing on the board of agenda.
I didn't put it on as an action item because we're not changing the language. So I'm just bringing this as an informational. And unless there's a concern by the board where we feel we need to formally change some of the language or do a memorandum, my interpretation is that COVID-related health or sick leave taken on that would fall under that catastrophic health condition. And historically, usually what we do is when we do those donations, I will go back and check because I think it has to be requested. That's where it'd be formally brought to the board on a case-by-case basis to allow the person to get those donations. And that's where the board would give the approval. So I'm looking into what the process is, but it's on a case-by-case basis. And the school board determination as to whether a situation does or does not meet this definition is not subject to review. So it is something that would be formally brought to the board.
But it'd be nice for you to know in advance too,
Yeah.
that we are supportive, and I guess if anybody is not.
Yep. Yep, and this is, I've met with, I know the Education Minnesota reps, but this would also impact all the other contracts. So if it's something that the board is comfortable with giving that leeway with the determining or interpretation of what constitutes a catastrophic health condition, just being aware of it. But if there's concerns, there are ways that we could do a memorandum of understanding. I don't think that's necessary, in my opinion.
It's just basically we agree that COVID is a catastrophic health condition.
Basically, yep.
I think
Was
that's-
this brought to you, or are you just preparing us for being proactive on this?
We've discussed it with meetings with union representatives. Sick leave has come up multiple times from different staff as far as a concern of people running out of sick leave due to all the COVID absences, whether they're sick or watching a kid that's sick or quarantining. And, it can add up very quickly in some circumstances where someone could be out for 28 days, theoretically, if the situation in the household would result in that. So it's extremely hard on some of our young parents who are also teachers, because if they have multiple kids, that can add up. And if they have to take care of someone that's in quarantine, then they're a close contact. And it can just multiply for them. So I think being able to use what's already in the contract language for donating sick leave, I think that could relieve some stress for some staff, knowing that if they run out as a last resort and they've expended all other leaves that are available, that would be an option that they could get donated up to 20 per episode. And I'm hoping that would be enough. But if we had to come back to the board for a second round of donations for some staff, I mean, that's something we can consider too.
I think it's a good way to be supportive of the staff, and it's the right time to have some flexibility, so.
Yep.
Keep looking into it and see what we can do.
Okay. And then the last thing I have is setting the date for a special board meeting to canvass election results. And we're looking at extending it out due to COVID and the delay in election tallies coming out or anticipating that. I know the county is doing their canvass on November 12th. Friday, November 13th is the absolute last day that we can canvass the election. So whether it's Thursday, the 12th, or Friday, November 13th, we need to set that date. Historically, we've done it like at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. Obviously, we would do it remotely. But we should probably set a date and time for that during the regular board meeting. And that's part on the crib sheet. So I don't know if you want to randomly discuss some times and stuff that someone would want to do a motion at later, whether we do Thursday. I'm assuming Thursday would be better than Friday for most people, or any thoughts on that?
I'd like Thursday. I think that makes sense. Keeps the weekend open.
Not that it makes a lot of difference. We are going to have a football game Thursday, the 12th. But it'll be an earlier start, probably at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock start.
Is there any objection for Thursday at 7:30 a.m.?
Not for me.
Tim, Boyd, Jeff,
I'm good.
thumbs up?
7:30 sounds good on Thursday.
It's usually I'd bring coffee and donuts. I'll have to mail them to you, but we'll just, once it's official, then I will set up a Zoom meeting and we'll Zoom in. It usually takes, I can't remember, it's not very long, 10, 15 minutes. That's all I have, unless there's any questions.
Moving on, high school principal, Mary Merchant. Hi, Mary. Can you hear us?
He's still muted.
Can you hear us, Mary?
Sorry, I can now. I had to turn the volume up. I can hear you, Jeff.
Okay.
So we're good. Okay, good evening, everybody. Mid-quarter reports went out. We're actually getting close to the end of first quarter, November 6th. I've sent a letter addressing attendance and truancy and looking at it. If kids aren't engaging, it's the same as not being present. And I've started to make calls to parents as teachers have gotten a hold of me and let me know they've reached out first. You know, if kids aren't, when I say on track, I mean passing their classes. And it's those kids who are distance learning is some of the issue. Encouraging today when I visited with a parent, they may have their child come back in the, or I should say in the building, in either whichever group they're in, maroon or gold, because it's been a struggle for them to try and get them to connect with distance learning. So with some of them, I think they're seeing and realizing we are putting all the safety precautions in place that we can. And like Jeff has said, you know, we don't have any cases that have stemmed from being in the building. So that's very encouraging. High school teachers, we have created a distance learning schedule, and that was attached to my board report, so that we just want to be prepared and get parents prepared just in case we would go to that, because we do expect the kids to connect throughout the day with all of their teachers. And so to help with that, for teachers who might have two sections of a class, we just put in one section. So for example, all the 7th graders would meet with those teachers at the same time. So like all the 7th graders would have their science class the same period, whereas now they're split into 2 different periods. So with the distance learning, we'd be able to do that and make it a little more efficient to connect with kids. Northern Division MASSP principals, we've decided to continue to meet weekly. There's just so many things that come up, and it's been wonderful to be able to see what others are doing and bounce ideas off each other. So we'll continue, at least for the time being, to meet weekly, and it's just so efficient to be able to do that with Zoom meetings. High school PLCs are meeting twice a month, and we have 3 different groups, and their focus is to develop technology in the classroom to increase student achievement. So the first time they met, they looked at writing their SMART goals and then the different focuses of where their needs are. Some it's going to be to develop the Zoom, some it's going to be working on videos. So just depending on where the needs of the teachers are, to make it just a better environment for the kids learning. Parent teacher conferences, they're scheduled for November 19th and 24th. We're going to do them either Zoom or Google Meet, phone calls if needed. And I'll say the final reach out would be through emails. And so teachers are starting to get schedules in place to reach out. And I told them they don't have to just be those 2 days and times during that whole 2-week period. However, we can schedule in for parents to meet, we're going to do that. And then eye observation, what we use for teacher evaluations. Teachers have started their self-assessments, and I'm going to start getting into classrooms. So that's where we are with that. Do you have any questions for me?
General questions. You're still in sort of your infancy here, but do you have an idea as to where we stand in terms of a failing grade based on, this distance learning versus what might be happening in a normal year? Are we seeing that becoming a problem? Second question, and you can sort of mull the first one over while I'm talking. Any thought that since we've had success in the building, any thought about getting those kids who are struggling, with truancy or anything else into that building on the days that they don't necessarily have to be in that building?
Well, sorry, Tim.
All right, go ahead. And those are really my 2 questions. I'm
going to say, I thought it was extremely high when we did our mid-quarter reports, how many kids had D's or F's. So to me, I found it alarming. I can tell you it is something that other schools are also struggling with. And that's why I want teachers to first reach out, and then I'm following up, reaching out. So we're making that personal contact. I think it's easy for them to think they can just fall between the cracks and look at how last spring, I shouldn't say their attitude, I wasn't here, but generally, and I know I dealt with it where I was, it was easier for them to disconnect and harder for us. It was just such a new experience. With the every other day in the building, it helps immensely, so they aren't falling through the cracks. And the kids who are joining teachers with Zoom meetings throughout the day, it's as close as we can get to them being there. So that's how we're tackling the poor grades. As far as getting in the building, quite honestly, I've had parents ask me, my concern would be special ed kids. We do have a number of them that are coming every day because that was an accommodation we could put in place. My concern is if I open it up for the others, depending on, if we base it on because they're failing and say that'll be our determining factor, then we could be consistent with it. We just have to be so careful that we don't exceed that 50% though. Because I know I would say the majority of the families, if we could let their kids in every day, would want them in every day. So that one makes it a tough one.
Yeah, and it's sort of a implied threat, and I guess that's difficult to, it's like a detention or something, but you've got kids who are struggling, and you can look at them, at least hold a carrot in front of their nose and say, you can continue every other day if your grades come up to passing levels again. But, you're going to be in there 5 days a week if that doesn't happen.
Yep. And I think that's a conversation I can have individually with parents when we see where we are when grades come out for the end of the first quarter. Any other questions, anyone?
Any updates on attendance? I know at the, I think it was the cabinet meeting, we were talking about the number of kids that, and you alluded to it as well, that just drop off. In fact, I guess we even had some that were working, that sort of thing. Any positive updates on that yet?
Well, I guess I consider like the conversation I had with a parent today a positive. So to me, what the steps I need to continue is making those personal calls and the contact and leaving messages, because once we have that conversation, we're on the same page and we're working together. So that really has helped immensely. And our goal is in the high school for the teachers to make contact with every single parent for conferences. So in some ways, I'm going to look at our conferences being more successful than when we bring them into the building. I think we're going to be able to, make that contact with everybody. So we will keep working on it. Anything else, anyone?
Thank you, Mary. All right, next we have the business office.
I think we already did that.
Yeah, we did. Under the finance committee.
Yeah. I should probably pick a place for that.
Crystal, we're gonna skip your section because we already covered it, but just speak up if you want to add to that. Otherwise, we'll move on to activities director, Chad Hazelton.
We are just still trying to make our way through this fall season. There are schools in the area that are closing down their sports for different periods of time. Not necessarily forced to close, but they are closing just because they think that that's what they should be doing. For instance, Northern Freeze this Friday, we were supposed to play volleyball, and they've shut down all their activities for this week. Grigla has canceled some games. BGMR has canceled some football games. So we see a lot of schools in the area that are choosing to forego some games in lieu for public health and public safety concerns. With that being said, we do still have some games scheduled for this coming week. We've got our volleyball team scheduled to go to Clearbrook on Thursday, and we have a home football game against Kellier, North Home, Little Fork, Big Falls on Friday. We're just going to keep going, keep taking things week by week, hoping that our coaches and our athletes are doing everything they need to do to keep themselves and everybody around them safe and following protocols so that we can continue to play as long as we possibly can. That's about it.
And Chad, just a question on when they are canceling or postponing their games. You said they're not required to, so they're still in like a hybrid model?
They're in their hybrid model or whatever their current learning model is. They're not enforced distance learning. They're just putting the good of the school in front of what may be considered athletic or extracurricular participation. So they're taking steps to go above and beyond what they might need to do to limit exposures.
Do you know what level those decisions are being made? Is that?
I don't know the exact numbers of what is at right now, but.
Well, the Freeze, they're consolidated, correct?
Yeah.
Or they're in a co-op. So, and we had a meeting with the superintendents last week and they discussed it a little bit. And as a group locally, they decided that would be best. You get a couple kids or coaches that come up positive. I mean, that could be something that could happen at any district at any time. So I think that's what they're basing it on, is kind of what's going on in each of their communities. And so it's really a day by day thing that we're looking at. It changes so quickly.
Next up, we'll have buildings and grounds and Seth Putz.
Jeff, did she say buildings and grounds?
She did. That's you.
That's me. I'm here.
That's you. All right.
Really isn't much to update. Jeff covered most of it. You know, the school and the faculty, everybody at the school is just working so absolute diligently to make sure things are safe and clean. And, you know, everybody's goal is to keep the kids there as long as they can. And, you know, so far, everybody working together is doing a fantastic job.
We have a meeting scheduled for next week for the Buildings and Grounds Committee, correct?
Actually, it's tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Glad I said something. All right, tomorrow. Okay.
Yep, and we're going to be going through some of the things that we talked about in the past, like Boyd brought up in the meeting last Thursday about looking at different things to do with the HVAC system for disinfection and stuff, and you know, upgrading our control systems and stuff like that that are getting to the point where it's going to have to be done here very shortly.
Did I send out a Zoom meeting link yet?
No, I did.
You did.
I did.
Okay. All
Hopefully,
right, good.
that's why I was picking your brain this morning.
Okay. All right. Thanks for doing that.
Yeah, Boyd, did you get it? Oh, Boyd said he got it, so maybe it worked.
All right.
Got mine. This is Lynn. I got mine as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Any questions for me, guys?
Seth, I did have a question because I parked by the parking lot sinkhole.
Yes.
What was the result there?
So when it got dug out, it was determined that it was not washing away. It was just settled from when it was originally put in. It was done poorly. So they brought in some clay packed around it. And actually they brought in road base first, built up around it, and then clay. And we've leveled it off with dirt for this year just to let it settle. Then come next year, once the frost comes out of the ground, we'll look at refilling it, getting it tarred.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
My car thanks you too. Anything else? Next up, we have community ed and transportation, Brett Cole.
Hi, everyone. Not a whole lot. Community ed wise, I did talk to Mr. Donalds, our driver's ed instructor, and he wanted to push back our online driver's ed class until end of November, going into December. And that's about it for community ed. Transportation wise, we were just plugging away. Things have actually gone pretty smooth for the most part. We've been down a few subs that said they didn't want to drive until the COVID situation kind of went away. But we've always had someone to drive the routes, and we've been getting kids to school and getting them home. So I guess that's it if there's any questions.
I guess I would add that that's another area that can hit a school hard. We just witnessed that, especially with our routes, if they're 30 minutes or more, if there's any exposure, everyone on the bus, including the bus driver, is considered a close contact. So we do have a situation where there might have been some exposure. So we have about 8 students and a bus driver that are in quarantining, and that would hit on the athletics as well. When people get on a bus for that 30 minutes or more, that's, no matter where you're sitting, that's considered a close contact. So it's just another awareness thing that how easily things can kind of clamp down on a school when we have those things happening. But Brent's done a wonderful job with the routes and making sure that we're keeping low numbers on there, and he's got a plan for picking up a few of the other kids that are on that route, but weren't on the bus on those days, so.
Okay. Next up, we've got food service with Cece. Is she on? I don't see her.
I didn't see her come up. I know she was gonna talk about, and it's in the board packet, the extension of the free meals, through June 30th, 2021. So that summer food program, will carry through the end of the year. But what we're seeing and a lot of other schools are seeing is a huge reduction in free and reduced applications. And those are important applications to get in because our compensatory aid and funding is based on those applications. And Crystal can correct me, but I think we get over $300,000 just with compensatory aid most years.
Not quite, but like 250 to 275,000, yes.
Well, it used
has
to be
decreased over-
300 when we had more applications coming in. Maybe that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, it's been decreasing. So I think this year it was like 245,000, I believe.
So, and that's based strictly on your free and reduce numbers. So,
Maybe they should vote almost on that one. Meals are free.
yeah, and I guess there is kind of some legislature out there. I don't know if I shared that with the board. Because a lot of schools are seeing, I sent out that enrollment melt probably a couple months ago. And that's based on students that are going online or homeschooling. We haven't been hit as hard as some districts, but some schools have really gotten hit hard with their enrollment numbers, kids going out away from the district. So they're looking at possibly doing a hold harmless where, depending on the situation, you could use last year's average daily membership numbers as far as calculating state aid. But that's just in the discussion mode. But I think we had 5 kids that we lost to homeschool that I can contribute directly to.
Yeah, because our numbers were down 30.
Yeah, and we anticipated some of that declining enrollment was just from graduating in a large class and bringing in a smaller kindergarten class. So some of that we anticipated, but there was more kids that we didn't think would be homeschooling that are.
Looks like she's gonna send out the application again. Is there anything else? I mean, phone calls or what are schools doing to encourage?
I don't know. I know she sends out a lot of mailings.
Mhm.
Whenever we send out food bills, she sends out information on the applications. I know in a normal year, when we had open house, she sat at a table and offered applications. We even one year had computers, so if they wanted to go and do it online, right then and there, we had people that could help them. But it's more challenging when we're doing all the social distancing and now families, and it's a good thing, they don't have to worry about paying for school lunch, so it's not, on their radar. But we still need them to try to fill out those applications. So I'm not sure what the magic trick is to get them to fill those out.
Yeah, it's hard if they're gonna get it for free without
Yeah.
doing the application, is that all?
Yeah.
anything else for the working session?
Hey, Corinne,
Yeah.
you know, I'm hard of hearing, but I'm hearing everybody quite well, but you're a little bit muffled. A little bit, I don't know what, you hit
I wonder if it's the
your-
mask.
Okay, okay.
I have my mask on, but yeah, I'll try to speak up. I always think I'm loud, but I'm not.
Can you hear her now?
Much better, much better.
That's
Thank you.
okay.
All right.
Corinne, there was one more thing that I need an update to give to you guys. We did have one of the afternoon custodial turn in his resignation, which I believe Danny should have put that in the packet for you guys.
Is that position posted already?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had it. I called and talked to Danny and Crystal, and they had it posted the next day.
Well, I think we can adjourn the working session.
Yeah, we have about 12 minutes before the hearing time.
Mhm.
So I don't know what we do for 12 minutes, unless there's a, no, we usually are running over time here. We're ahead of the ball here, so.
Bathroom break for everyone.
Take a short recess and
We have to get our forms in to Dan. So,
I missed the end of Seth's, I lost a connection there for a second, but I saw there was an ad out for a part-time custodial help. So now are we looking for 1.5 custodial positions?
Yep, that's correct, Tim.
And are you getting a response on that?
I talked to a guy on Friday. I had a quick informal meeting with him. And it's kind of, I don't know how to take it, whether he's positive or not. He's got to figure he'd be taking a really huge pay cut from where he's at now. But he's at a point in life where he wants to change and cut his driving down. But for the part-time custodial, I don't think we've had any interest or anything in that either.
Okay, and then also, I may have missed this, but did we acknowledge your Masmus, or is that coming in the regular meeting, Jeff?
That's on the regular meeting.
yep, send a written communications. So we can do
All
it
right.
formally at the board meeting, but I will comment on Seth getting it done in record time. I think it's a 2 to 3 year commitment for most, and I think he did it in less than a year. So it's like
Yep.
52 or 54 hours. So
Yep, did it just a little under a year and a half.
good job.
Actually, with all the thank you. With all the COVID stuff, it actually made it pretty easy because all the seminars and webinars and learning we had to go through with this. That gets your hours in pretty quick.
You shouldn't have said that. You should have said, oh my gosh, with all this COVID stuff, it just took forever.
No, it was a lot of work, but everything was worth it.
Good. So as long as you have a few minutes, we did update, I don't think it was in your packet. We have the contracts for the 8th grade volleyball coach and Emily Pearson, the 7th grade volleyball coach. And the dates for the head hockey coach. 16-week contract and starts November 23rd through March 13th. And I believe that's positions budgeted. And then the junior high positions is 9/28 through November 24th. That's 8 weeks. And again, both of those positions, I believe, were in the athletic budget, so.
The assistant hockey coach position is posted currently, is that correct?
That's a Chad question. Chad, did you hear the question?
Yeah, it should be posted.
Okay. Well, should we take a 10-minute break and then resume at 7 o'clock sharp?
Sounds good. We'll-
Okay. So I'm just gonna leave the link open and I'm just gonna mute and stop the video and